Hi, I'm Frederick Van Johnson, and in this interview, I'm going to be talking to Mr. Trey Radcliffe, who is one of the most followed people in social media today. Just to give you some quick numbers, he's one of the top. In the top five of the most followed people in social media. He's only been doing this for 5 years, so from zero to almost or over 8 million people following him in just about 5 years. He adds about 25,000 new followers per day, which, do the math, adds up to a gazillion people, a lot of people every month. So we're going to find out what Trey did to get to these numbers and how he keeps it going. All right, before we dive into the interview, I just want to give you some perspective about the stuff that we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to just go through some of the numbers here. So on Zoomsphere.com, they're a service that profiles the most popular profiles on Pinterest. We can look down here and we can see that Mr. Trey Radcliffe is at number 30 with 3.5 million followers on Pinterest. Well, let's hop over to Google Plus, and we can see that Trey is number 7 here, just below Usher. And you let this sink in a little bit. Above Trey are people like Usher, Tom Anderson, Snoop Dogg, Larry Page, the CEO at Google. Number 1 is Britney Spears, and she's got just under 5 million. Trey is hot on her tail with 3.8 million. What's more interesting, though, to me, if you look below Trey here, so the people that don't have as many followers, Madonna, Guy Kawasaki, Tyra Banks, Richard Branson, all these people on here, Paris Hilton, all these people on here that are below Trey. Trey's at number 7 and growing, like we said. Now, we can look over on Twitter and see that he has 37,000, almost 40,000 followers there. And on Facebook, he's at 381,000 subscribers. And altogether, over everything he does, he adds up to just around 8 million. What's interesting about that is that's 8 million in reach, and that's not including the traffic to his blog or the reach that he has on his email list or those sorts of things. This is just purely social media. So we're going to dive into that interview right now with Trey and just find out how he did this. All right, Trey Radcliffe, let's jump let's jump right into this. After that fancy snazzy intro, I'm sure people just want to dive right in and figure this thing out. First of all, dude, thank you for taking the time to just reveal all this stuff to me. I know a couple days ago I sent you an outline of the stuff I was going to ask you so that you'd be prepared. Thank you for agreeing to do it anyway and letting me dive into kind of the inner workings of the Stuck in Customs and the Trey Radcliffe world. So I appreciate that.
No, of course. Well, let me interrupt you straight away, and I'll tell you why I agreed to do this interview. There are 2 reasons. One is because I think you're a good person, right? I think that what you're doing is smart and needed, and I trust you, and you're really doing amazing things, and I want the best for you. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason is because people are always asking me about social media and, how do I get popular, or what should I do, or why should I do it, or what should my strategy and tactics be when it comes to social media? Other than art and photography questions, because really I'm an artist and photographer.
Sure.
Other than those kind of questions, social media questions seem to dominate my life. Everyone wants to know. And I personally, I don't sell any ebooks on how to get popular in social media, or, I don't sell any videos or tutorials or training. I don't do any of that. I'm just art and photography. So since I get this question asked so much, I want to point people to you now, because I know you have this amazing new course, and you really know what's going on. And I trust you. I think other people should trust you too. So I'll send everyone to you in the future. I think, can we give them some kind of, let's give them a discount code or something.
Absolutely. So I thought about this before the call. So Stuck in Customs, which I think it should be easy for you to remember, right? So let's use the code Stuck in Customs, and that'll give for this. The course that you're talking about is called Essential Web Marketing for Photographers, and essentially how
much does it cost?
It's $147. It's $147. But what I like to do for your followers, this vast legion that we're going to talk about in a second here, I want to drop it down $50. So it's going to be 97 for Trey. All right. So if when they check out, if they use the code Stuck in Customs, it'll drop it down to $97. And what the course does, what it attempts to do is try to get people on track to being Trey. You know, to having the numbers that we showed in the intro there. You know, so at least doing the right things to get on the path to that. You know.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea behind it. So thank you for the kind words, Trey. I appreciate that.
Good. All right. Well, next time I'm in San Francisco, we'll compare notes, and if some people came your way, you could buy me a steak dinner or something.
You got it. You got it. I will buy you a steak and lobster dinner. How about that?
All right.
All right. Let's dive into this. Enough of that hoo-ha stuff. For the folks, you know, notwithstanding the numbers that we just looked at, so there's probably a couple of folks that may not have heard of Trey Ratcliffe yet. But just do a brief history. Like, who is Trey? Like, what started you on this path to social media dominance and photography excellence?
Aha. Well, I'll give the nickel tour. I should start out by saying I'm very humble. I really do not take myself too seriously at all. In fact, that's why it's one of many reasons I just moved here to New Zealand, because the people are really chill. They're really zen. No one takes themselves too seriously. They like to have, you know, long meals, and, you know, they understand the meaningful things in life. And
yeah.
By the way, it is all because really of social media that brought me and my family here. We were able to, you know,
which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, this sort of thing. And I'm sure that this looks like it's a master plan, right? That I'm like one of these German generals in World War II that you see, you know, bending over a table and, you know, sliding some troops into Poland. It's not like that. You know, this has been cobbled together over many years and thousands of mistakes, but it all started really the same way it has ended now or continues to go. And that's with the art. I'm really an artist, a photographer. I have sort of a unique take on photography. I have sort of a strange style that I've developed, and people seem to like it. Whether they're just enjoying the photos or whether they want to learn to take better photos. And I started this experiment totally by myself about 5 or 6 years ago on stuckincustoms.com, which is the blog and sort of the center of my digital life. I think everyone should have a center that they should call their home, and that's mine. That's sort of the digital version of me that is awake while I sleep.
Well, Trey, let me just pause you right there before you continue. On the Stuck in Customs site, I want to be clear, and I want people to understand that you just said that you started this journey 5 or 6 years ago. So 5 or 6 years ago, you went from the beginnings, or being just like all of us, to those numbers. I mean, yeah, you're still just like all of us. You're still human, right? But I'm talking in terms of the numbers that you've accumulated on the various social networks. You're not like all of us, right? So in 5 short years, right? In the time that the iPad has been, you know, shorter time than the iPad has been around, you've gone from 0 to crazy numbers online. So I want to put a fine point on that before you go on. So, okay, more about Stuck in Customs.
All right. So I started it as a way to share my photos and techniques. And this is sort of I was experimenting with art and trying different things and using some software in weird ways, and really for the blog for the first year or so is just me and my mom on the Lonely thing. It's really kind of sad, but really you don't do this stuff to become popular or whatever. You just really do it for yourself.
Right.
That's of course the proper reason to do anything. If it's meaningful to you, you should do it. And I think that an artist creates for the sake of creation, and he shares as his means of connecting with the world.
Right.
So I started sharing on the blog in this way. And slowly, via word of mouth, people started sharing it around. We've never done any advertising for the blog. There
was no business plan in place. There was no,
no.
By this year, I need to be at revenues of X and this many followers, or I'm a failure. There was nothing like that.
No. It's whatever happens. And you try a bunch of things, and you do course corrections and this and that. And It's just basically a huge digital petri dish, and people are only seeing like the tip of the iceberg. Underneath it is like, the rest of the iceberg, which is just a panoply of disasters.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean that's a good analogy, because it is the failures that lead us to the successes that we have, especially in marketing. Right. It's people only see the successes. They only see the above the waterline piece and the gigantic piece below the waterline, which in a lot of cases is a lot of failure and a lot of trial and error. They don't see, and then they just see the top, and they say, "Oh, you're a genius. That's amazing." Right? And you just sort of, just take it for granted all the effort it took to get to that genius point. So let talk about photography beginnings. So you're a photographer, and you've planted your flag in the whole HDR world. And when a lot of people think about HDR, they think about you. They think about Trey Radcliffe's Stuck in Custom HDR tutorial. Where did that come from? Where did the idea to do a tutorial around this stuff and put it online for free come from?
So, back in the day, that got me a lot of heat from all the old school photographers, many of whom still, are quite vitriolic in their comments as they hang out in internet forums all week long. But because most people, that's changing nowadays, but most people would not share their techniques. They were very protective of what they did. They felt like it was a trade secret, or that you lost something by sharing. But that assumes sort of a zero-sum game. And it's clear to me that when you create something and there's sort of a purity to it, that by sharing the methods of these creations, it makes everything better. Yeah. There is not a zero-sum game. There is, we live in a world of more than ample supply, right? There's a world of plenty out there. Yeah. And I think that the world is better when we all live and work and create together. It's not a world where if one person wins, another person loses. We can all kind of win together, and we're all going through this life together, and it's better if we work together. And after all, that just feels much more naturally human to me. So that was sort of the philosophical premise behind sharing all my techniques with HDR photography. And now, of course, it's gone well beyond that. Most people, they find out about me because of this one subcategory of art. But I mean, obviously, you know what it's like, because you're a photographer and you talk with photographers all the time. Once you like one kind of photography, you typically like every kind of photography.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And so do I. I do everything. And so really, I'm much more into using technology to make beautiful things. And new technology is always coming out. There's always new gadgets. There's always new software, and I play with it all. And I just love this idea of using technology to bend light to your will.
Yeah. Now, did you ever at some point over the past 5 years, like, get to the point where you're like, you know what, I really should have sold that HDR tutorial. I should have just put a price tag on it and made a little shopping cart. I could have made so much money on that. Did you ever get to that point?
Oh no, I think if you're always, totally focused on making money, yeah. If that seems to be your raison d'etre, then that's a little bit off. It can be there, sort of a sideline thing, something that you think about, because you do need to have money so that your kids can have school books and food and this sort of thing, right? You do need money,
right?
But mostly it should just be about creating something unique and sharing it with the world, and then you take a small percentage of that, and you might charge for that, because there are enough people out there with some disposable income that might have $10, $100, or a couple $100 to spend to find out something either first, to get it first before everybody else. People will pay to get things first. People also pay to get things that are unique and different and more personal. So that's always been sort of the general rule there at Stuck in Customs. It's 99.5% of everything is free. People can have a great time and enjoy themselves. It doesn't bother me at all, because even if they don't buy anything, they'll probably tell their friends, and they all have a good time, and the world becomes a better place because everyone is kind of creating and enjoying this stuff together, and we're sort of like these internet acquaintances with millions of people around the world, and it's really nice. That feels very, very human. You know, when you invite family over for family and friends over for Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner, you know, you don't think about charging them. It's just sort of a part of life, right? You're just you're making food and sharing it, and it's a very human thing to do. So, so this is part of the theory behind separating what is free and what is not free.
So let's just talk a little bit about the success of that HDR tutorial, right? Which I'm spending a lot of time on that because that was the beginning, right? That was the spark, that was the big bang that got you to where you are right now. Can you, to the extent that you can share, how many people have downloaded that thing? What's it doing performance-wise?
Yeah, so it's been enjoyed and helped millions of people around the world. Mm-hmm. You know, once something is up and everyone has access to it, they share it with their friends. And even if someone only has a passing interest, they usually know someone that's interested in photography and making better photos. And the great thing about the HDR tutorial is you just see some of the pictures and it's very aspirational. They're like, oh, I'd like to do that. Yeah. And then once you try it, you know, you can actually try it out for free, you know, get the software and all that stuff. And then you look at the results, you're like, wow, I did it. And it might only take, 15 or 20 minutes. And then you got something that really impresses you, and it surprises you that you can create something so fun and interesting. So it's a very personal thing. And when people have something personally exciting that happens to them and different and unexpected, they immediately share it with all their friends. So that's, looking back, all this stuff is clear to me. I was just sharing because I thought it was cool. But now I'm able to kind of psychoanalyze the masses and see that it's just really simply bringing a lot of people a lot of enjoyment and adding something to their lives that wasn't there. It's bringing art back into their lives that might have been crushed out of their heads since grade school. Mm-hmm. All kids are artists. Everyone loved to draw on construction paper and use sparkle glue and all that stuff. But at some point, this industrialized educational system that we're in beats it out of you because it's not a useful way to make a living or whatever. So it's very exciting for people to have this new added right brain layer of creativity allowed back into their lives.
Well, let's talk about the plan. So, shifting gears into social media and that machine that coalesced, you didn't have a plan when you build it, but it did. The Stuck in Customs machine coalesced into something that is an engine now that's doing crazy things online, right? So define that machine right now. What are the components of the Stuck in Customs universe?
So I set this up in kind of a unique way. I set it up so that I could just be sort of this irresponsible artist that flits around and is creative and just kind of does what he wants. We have a team of about a dozen people, full-time and part-time, that help out at Stuck in Customs. And they're a wonderful team, and they all do various important things, everything from full-time support to we have a chief of operations, we have finance people, web design people. We make a lot of apps. Our apps have millions of downloads. Yeah. So it's a big machine, right? And in a lot of ways, all companies are the same, right? You have things like accounts receivable and taxes, and and meetings, and you can abstract what all companies do into some basic functions. Ours just happens to be a web publishing enterprise that is always putting out unique art. And I set the whole thing up so that I would not have to do the spend all day on the business side of things, so that I could just be creative and create art. And now I do love all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I love everything from, my background is computer science and math, so I love coding. I love getting into the PHP and fixing stuff. I've owned various companies to various degrees of success and failure. So I love all the business side too. So I have all the strategy sessions with everyone. I kind of set the long-term direction of what we want to do and why we're doing this, the vision of it all. And then I also put on my tactical hat and sit down with, for example, our chief of operations. And after I create these things, I think, okay, well, now that we've created this thing, how can we slice it up and maybe charge for it? Because we are a company, we need to make sure we remain profitable and all these sorts of things.
Now on that, Trey, so you were talking about the structure of the business, and you said roughly 12 people work for you right now. You don't have a stuck in custom skyrise in New York City, or some office park location in Silicon Valley. You guys are distributed, right? You're in New Zealand. You've got people all over the planet, right? How does that work?
Oh, it's great. Well, it works just like this. I'm not sure that you have to go into an office with cubes to have a successful company.
Totally.
I think that there are certain types of businesses that do benefit from having everyone physically together, because there is a lot to human communication and teams that can benefit from physical proximity. But most businesses can do fine just like this. We use Google Hangouts a lot. Yeah. We're all constantly talking to one another. I think that being able to work out of your home is just wonderful. It really does fantastic things to your overall psyche.
Oh my God, yeah, totally.
The idea that I'm not always on top of people. People need to run errands, or if there's so many things in life, that just get in the way. You got to go to the bank, or you got to go get your kids, or go do something, or there's a million different little things that end up being extreme annoyances when you have to go into a cube every day, and that's no good. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. I followed your lead, and this is my cube right here.
All right,
I love it. Let's talk about managing social. Right, so you've got Google Plus. I mean, let's just talk about numbers right now. On Google Plus, over 3.8 million people are following you with an M. 3.8 million. On Pinterest, 3.5 million. On Twitter and Facebook, combined, over 400,000 people. This is legions of people, and just a lot of networks to keep track of. And you're one person who's also a photographer. Yeah, you got 12 people working with you. How does all that work? Like, how do you stay on top of things? What's Trey's schedule? You get up in the morning and you post, or what's going on?
Well, so this is one thing that has been surprising to a lot of people, is that I do everything in social media myself. I don't have automated things. I don't have anyone else do my postings for me. It's all me. And we should back up a second and have sort of a philosophical premise behind social media, is that I don't do this with any kind of end goal of I do it just because I love it. I really enjoy interacting with people. I find it to be a very human way to connect with people, because I think we do spend an awful lot of time alone, don't we?
Yeah,
I think no matter what you do, maybe it's even more the case with artists. We spend a lot of time alone, and you just want to connect with people. And it feels very human to jump online and share a photo and talk about the experience and see what people say. And then you have a back and forth, and you go back into your own little private man cave or whatever and do whatever you do. So I think it's fun. I do it for myself in sort of a selfish way. I also do it for other people because I like to add to their lives. And I don't know why I would want someone else to do that for me. I really get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
But then how do you balance that? I mean, there's, like I was saying, there's a lot of networks to deal with. There's a lot of stuff to do, and you're doing it all yourself. Are you on a routine? Do you have your Google Calendar set up that says, "Oh, it's Pinterest time. Oh, it's Twitter time"? How do you handle that stuff?
No, I don't have any kind of schedule. I'm a travel photographer, right? So my schedule's always wild.
Right.
I'm at weird airports at weird times, and hotels, and taking photos at sunset sometimes, and it's just wild. It's completely unpredictable, and I think that people that don't even have that sort of exact life description, like a travel photographer, I have a feeling that everyone's life is fairly chaotic. Yeah. There's always things that pop up and get in the way. And so I'm not a big believer in just scheduling this stuff and having reminders. But this is me. And this is how I interact with the world. I know my wife, for example, she likes to have schedules and reminders for everything. Like, okay, well, we got to make sure we get the kids' lunches ready for school. And, unless she has a little thing pop up, she might not get to it until later or something, right? It's the same thing with, it really depends on the kind of person you are. Like, for example, when I start feeling kind of chubby or whatever, I think, oh, I should go exercise, right? I just go do it. I go run or do whatever so that I get myself back into shape. But there's other people that maybe aren't that kind of self-starter, and they need to have a schedule, like go to like an aerobics class or go to a spin class. And they have to they have to be part of a system, either that's outside of themselves or that is suggested to them. And I assume that as part of your courses, you suggest a template to people to get them started.
Yep.
So I think that can be a real help. And then once they see how to do it, then they can start customizing it for their own life. And my routine basically is I do wake up and I check all the social networks just to see what happened overnight, because I always post stuff right before I go to bed, and I wake up and look at the responses. Mm-hmm. It's impossible for me to respond to everybody because we get thousands of comments and whatnot. But I do pick and choose and respond to some people within reason. And then I post something new. I share some new thoughts. I treat each social network a little bit differently, because it's slightly different crowds on each one. I don't really ever use anything that's automated because I just really enjoy the process myself. I'm always trying new things too. Like, for example, I just started on Feed, Pheed,
mm-hmm.
Feed.
Yeah.
Who knows if it's going to be successful, but you got to get on these things early just in case. And I'm going to do an experiment with this one because I figure we have the other big four. They're doing fine.
Yeah. And
we're going to do this. We're going to have a hangout soon, and I'm going to get a bunch of photographers in, and we're all going to turn on our feed for paid because, it's one you can pay for. People can subscribe, and they get stuff on there. So we'll try something on Feed, for example, where I'll just put up photos on Feed that I don't put anywhere else. And so I'll do this little experiment with a group of photographers for a year. And then we'll look at it at the end of the year and say, oh, this was a tremendous failure. Oh, it kind of worked. Maybe I got some extra coffee money or whatever it is. You want to do it with me, by the way?
Totally. Yeah, I'm in.
All right. Do it. But you got to put stuff on there that you don't put anywhere else.
I will do that. I will shoot stuff specifically for the feed.
Right. So, by the way, that's not a bad strategy, even whether or not people are paying for it, because, of course, you don't charge for any of these other social networks.
Yeah.
But you should still put up unique stuff everywhere and say, hey, look, I'm just doing this for Google Plus or just doing this on Facebook.
Okay.
Because you can't expect people to follow you on all the networks. That's too much of an ask.
Right.
So you want people to feel like, oh, I'm glad I'm following Trey on Google Plus because he makes special videos for me there.
Yeah. No, Trey, imagine that you have a whiteboard next to you, right? And you've got all the social networks that you're on, and you've got your blog. How do you organize this stuff? Are the social networks there specifically to drive traffic into your blog, or does the blog drive traffic to the social networks? What's the metaphor?
Yeah, the blog is definitely the epicenter of my digital existence. That is something that is always going to be there.
So it's the sun, and your social networks are planets, right?
Yeah. Or another way I think about it is that the blog is like my wonderful little, cabin in the woods. It's all mine. I go out and I chop the wood, and I take care of it and plant the flowers and make sure it's a wonderful little place for me. And then I literally think of the streams that are coming by, like the social networks, little rivers and streams and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it brings new stuff all the time. And I know that these streams are all really quite ephemeral. You know what it's like. You throw a stick into a stream and then you see it for a little while, then it's gone. Mm-hmm. And these appear to be becoming more and more ephemeral. So I put time into them because, streams are pretty things, mm-hmm. and they're interesting. But they don't really last. There's a permanence. Once you put something online, everything is always there online.
Right.
But it's gone,
It's out of the periphery, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I like having my little digital cabin in the woods.
Nice. Now, okay, so in that digital cabin in the woods, you are spouting out all kinds of gold nuggets from there. So I've got Flatbooks you've launched that presumably you used the blog as a launching or rocket engine for that. You've got webinars, you're doing paid tutorials, all that stuff. So let's talk about that business piece of it from an internet marketing content creator standpoint. First of all, are those things lucrative? Are you making money from those? I mean, you live in New Zealand, so you got to be making a little bit. So tell me about that. Just to the extent that you can, for people that are like, how does Trey stay afloat? Tell me about that piece.
Yeah, they all do really well. We are a 7-figure business. We have been for a few years. We have the margins are ridiculous, frankly, because it's all online.
It's digital, right?
Yeah, and it's growing at a very nice pace. We have I don't. Let me see. How can I say this so it doesn't sound weird? Well, okay. So we have kind of more money than we know what to do with, because I am not I don't really spend a lot of money. I'm not like a car guy or anything. Really, all I spend money on is make sure my family is happy, and I spend money on travel and photography gear, right? Yeah. And then we have plenty of extra. So everything is going great on the business side. We're very relaxed. We're happy at meetings, and the business guys they always are trying to grow it and figuring out new angles, this kind of stuff. But I'm always kind of just really chill, like, oh, don't worry about it. Everything's fine, and we're not all pressury like that. Really, we just want to put beautiful stuff out there and help change people's lives and help add to their lives. And that comes first. The art comes first, and then the business stuff comes second. And I think if you're doing kind of unique things and people tend to like you and trust you or whatever, then the money side takes care of itself.
Absolutely. Now on that sort of doing unique things tangent, so there's the idea of having multiple income streams so that one goes away or one is underperforming, the other ones can take over. In contrast to corporate America, where you get one check, and if you lose that check, you got to go find another check to replace that check, or else you're not paying your mortgage and your car payment and all that other stuff. You have multiple engines on Stuck in Customs. Is that the way that photographers, especially independent creatives right now, should be approaching business, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to be the best photographer in the world and I'm going to get paid 6 figures for every engagement I go to? Should they be deploying these multiple kinds of products so that they can shore up throw sandbags in the levee, as it were?
It's hard to say. As far as I can tell, most of what I'm doing is quite an anomaly. Because I do look around at other photographers and artists and see how they monetize things just out of interest. And I don't know if I can necessarily recommend that people copy what I do, because it might not work for them. I think it should be a very personal extension of yourself. I'm fairly, I don't know if ADD is the right word, but I like having lots of projects going at the same time. That's why we have an ebook site at flatbooks.com. That's why we have apps. That's why we have online training and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think, frankly, if you're a photographer, that still having clients is one of the most predictable means of having revenue, because people are willing to pay for good photography and hiring good photographers for their time. And I think that people can use social media to increase the flow of their clientele and the quality of their clientele. Because, you know, I get a lot of new photographers come to me and ask for advice and this sort of thing. And for example, I have no clients. I don't ever go do client work like for Nike or weddings or babies or whatever. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I even had someone come to me and they offered, you know, all expense paid trip to Paris. We'll pay you tens of thousands of dollars to go take a photo of this thing for us, right? And I said no, and because I just don't have clients. It's not my way of doing things now. But I could not give that advice to anyone else. I think if anyone else gives you that kind of offer, even a lesser offer, you should say yes. Right. You should go do it.
Right.
So,
they're cash flow negative at that point, right?
Right. So the kind of advice I give is not to do it the way that I'm doing it, because I think it's hard and weird and this sort of thing. But everything that I've been doing with social media and everything that you're talking about in your class with social media, I think people should adopt, because that can help increase the amount of predictable business, which is having clients pay you to do stuff.
So social media, right? And I want to wrap this up because I know you have a life to get back to there, but you are, like we said in the intro, you're one of the most followed people online, right? I'm just looking at my numbers here. You're currently in the top 5. Cumulatively, you have over 8 million people following you. So you could send a tweet from your phone right now and presumably, you know, or a message from your phone and reach millions of people while you're sitting there in front of the fireplace. And you're adding people at a clip of about 1 million or so a month, right? If I did the numbers correctly. So what I want to know is, how do I do that, Trey? And that's what the listeners want to know, you know, or the people that are watching this. I mean, of course, you know, there's, you know, the butterfly flaps its wings, there's chaos prints, all this stuff that's going on that can't be repeated. But from what you've learned over the past 5 years, if you could give people some concrete first steps in order to at least put themselves on a trajectory to get to at least start getting into the millions of followers, what would you say to them?
Sure. Well, and I assume that everyone watching knows that total number of followers doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's the quality of your followers, and whatever you have, you know, you should find happiness no matter what, right?
Right.
More followers, more money, that does not make you a happier person. In fact, if you see wealthy people that are angry and bitter people, they were probably the same way before they had money. And you see happy, rich people, they were probably just as happy before. So, you know, don't assume this will bring you a new level of happiness. But I think when you adopt some of the strategies that you're talking about, that it will add a new layer of meaning to your life. I think there's time, you know, for more chapters in everyone's life. Because social media is really the future of all of us. And this is an important chapter in your life, and it can add new meaning and new wonder and everything to your life. So it will really add to your life, no matter how many followers you end up getting. It will add positively to your life. So you should look at it like that.
Yeah.
But beyond that general sort of meta statement, I think it's important to keep creating unique things and sharing often, as much as you can. Don't be afraid about oversharing, because really you're just like a kid with a little piece of art that you drew. There's no ego in it. When you run around to show everyone in your family and then you put it up on the refrigerator, you just want people to see what you've done, and there's sort of a purity in that. And if you share stuff with that kind of purity, it doesn't have to be art. Of course, we're talking about photography or whatever. Mm-hmm. But whatever it is, that one thing or the two things in which you have a real interest, do a lot of research, put together something that's unique and interesting to you, that you find cool, and then share that awesomeness with the world, and it will be infectious.
Yeah.
And people will start to talk about what you're talking about. They'll talk about you, and it will add to your life. And that's the ultimate reason that we all are online and making friends and on social networks, because we know it adds to our lives.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Sage advice from the guy that, like I said, has 8 million followers. So Trey, like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. I want to remind the people that are watching this that that course that you're referring to is called Essential Web Marketing for Photographers that my company MediaBytes just published. And for the Stuck in Customs audience, we're going to discount it by $50 to $97. Just use the code Stuck in Customs, and you'll be able to get that. So Trey, any parting shots? Any last words you wanna throw out there? Tips before we close this off?
Well, I don't know. I think we should probably touch base again in a year or so and see where everything's at. Everything changes pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll do, since this video is going to be hosted on YouTube, what I'll do is use the cool little YouTube commenting feature, and the numbers that we talk about in this interview, I'll update them from time to time so that with
little annotations.
Yeah, a little annotation that'll pop up and say, "Oh no, he's now at 20 million instead of 8 million."
Well, I think beyond that changing, of course, I think the thing that changes is the nature of the social networks.
Yeah.
I think that there's always new ones that come up. They change their algorithms around.
Sure.
Who knows what's going to be happening with Google Plus and Facebook in the next few years? It'll be really interesting to see what happens. And I think that I know from the kind of questions that I get about social media, I know that there's a lot of just confusion in general about what to do and whatnot. And I think whenever someone hears about something new, which seems to happen, or a new change or a new way to approach a social network, that's often scary to people. So I honestly will continue to point people to your course, because I think that as things change, you guys will stay on top of it, and I think people really get a lot out of what you're doing. So, and I know you're doing it as a business or whatever, but that's fine.
Yeah.
You really care about it, and I think you'll help out people.
Yep.
And I think it's really exciting time for all this stuff.
Awesome. Trey Radcliffe, Stuck in Customs. Thank you, sir. It's been it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Again, I always love talking to you. My head is always exploding whenever we finish talking with different things to go try out. So thanks again, man. I appreciate you taking the time from New Zealand through the magic of the internet to come chat with us about how you did what you did. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Once again, that was Mr. Trey Radcliffe. And if you want to get on a fast track to kind of doing the things that Trey's doing in social media, the course that he mentioned that I have out is called Essential Web Marketing for Photographers. You can go check it out. And if you decide to buy it, you can get $50 off the purchase price, knock it down to $97. Just use the code Stuck in Customs when you check out, and it'll automatically bring the price down. So thanks for watching this interview, and I look forward to seeing you in social media.